understand how we got here and what we need to do. Supervisor Koufax pointed out in one of the meetings that there's been no documentation ever that the inclusionary housing ordinances have ever solved the low-income housing problem. And I would like you to also consider, every one of the Board of Supervisors, consider the fact that there's layer and layer and layer of regulation getting put on the business people at this point. We can talk about the sewer proposals, we can talk about the CARB proposals, and all these end up having a negative impact on the business person and the consumer. And we're already at a point in our history across the country that government has grown to a size that the population is unable to support. So I would really like you to consider going back to square one on this, and I would really appreciate if the new Board of Supervisors or the new supervisors would really study this before the next meeting.
Thank you, John. Any other members from the public want to speak on this issue? Okay, with that, we'll bring it back. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This issue has been discussed numerous times since I've been on the board. Researching back to 2006, and there were earlier discussions as well, and bringing it forward to a comprehensive packet the board reviewed and discussed on January 23rd, 2007, and I believe that the memo that Ms. Hillegas references in December of '06 is a component of this very comprehensive packet. Just a comment to, I think we can all speculate about kind of the path that this has been on since then, and I just feel that the taking the document that's before us and using it as the template to move forward is not a good way to go forward with public policy, appropriate public policy that we have the responsibility to enact here. I agree with Mr. Graff that there is a lot of history to this, and it isn't going to solve the problem of affordability in Mendocino County. I think that most reasonable people would agree to that. But I don't think that that removes us from our responsibility of doing an ordinance that is an appropriate one. So reading from, this is in our opinion section from the Mendocino Beacon dated December 11th, 2008, and it's titled, "The County's Delusionary Inclusionary Housing." So there's a paragraph, and they're sort of wrapping up some critical sort of analysis of county government. So they say in paragraph 2, there were articles about land use appeals and grand jury reports, several economic development planning workshops, and escalating infrastructure dilemmas. Then there were ordinances for medical marijuana and nuisance abatement. Now there's a delusional, inclusionary, affordable housing ordinance that fulfills a mandate on paper and little else. So I think that that's really what we're faced with here today. So in the spirit of trying to do the important work that we're supposed to be doing, I'd like to roll the clock backwards, not to create any additional work for staff, because I think as Ms. Glassy articulated, that really has been done. So we have a comprehensive document. I don't know, it's double printed on both sides of the paper. It's approaching 50 pages from back in January of '07. So, Mr. Chair, my idea of what we should be doing here today would be to give some staff direction about materials to bring back with us and try to expedite this. And I think that we need to look at the housing task force alternative. I believe Ms. Hillegas said that the task force met for 5 years. I attended some of those meetings in '05. I know there was a lot of frustration from a number of the participants because the process dragged on and the county really didn't get down to business and taking action. But this document in Table 4 creates 2 alternatives brought forward by the Housing Task Force. And I believe that that is the template we should be using. And I believe that we ought to have our new housing director work with the planning team and other appropriate staff and bring back to us that very important alternative that was recommended by a community-based group that did their best to come up with inclusionary zoning policies and recommendations, and it's summarized in the document that staff retrieved from this January 2007 meeting. And it creates, there are two options within its recommendation, and I believe that that's where we ought to be headed, because I think that that is the work that was done by our dedicated community volunteers, and I think the work has been done for us. I think it's about taking the steps, and unfortunately there was not a majority viewpoint on the board at that time to move forward that. There was instruction, there was a motion made, and it lacked 3 votes to go forward to have staff compile an ordinance based on the Housing Task Force alternative. That information still exists. I think it's more appropriate and more in line with what other entities have done. Included in this document is Appendix C. It's a comparison of inclusionary programs of cities, and there are also some counties included. We have the specifics of the Fort Bragg inclusionary document, and its percentages are at 15. The one that was cited by Ms. Hillegas of Ukiah, which is at 20%. Both of these apply to 5 or more units. So I think that we need to take a look at what is policy in the surrounding areas, literally right where we are. So Fort Bragg and Ukiah, I think, are certainly ordinances. They've had these in force, at least it says adopted in '04 for the city of Fort Bragg. It doesn't give the date here for the city of Ukiah. So I believe we need to be taking a look at that as an appropriate document to move forward on adequate public policy that addresses this very important component of our housing element, fully understanding that it and it alone will not solve our affordable housing dilemma by any stretch. But I don't believe that we should pass something that, and I really concur, and I give credit to the Advocate News and the Mendocino Beacon for studying in great detail the actions of this body. They fully review all of the Board of Supervisors tapes, and they track the discussion. And they have quotes from Ms. Glassy, quotes from myself, quotes from Supervisor Colfax, and conclude that it is a delusionary, inclusionary housing ordinance. And I think that in addition to that being a clever play on words, it's an accurate assessment. So I would encourage the board to move forward to revive an already existing document, and having our new housing director with his expertise and experience work as the planning team to see if there are any items that are maybe not timely in that now, since some time has gone by. But I think that could be a rather rapid review, and it could be brought back to us to hopefully expedite its passage. Thank you.
Any other members? John, go ahead.
Well, without having the inclusionary housing task force recommendations in front of us, it's a little difficult to say that would be the superior ordinance to work off of. But I would appreciate having that additional information. I do think we could probably give some general direction on what we prefer as to some of the specific requirements. Or perhaps it just makes sense to have it come back with the additional information.
Well, I really feel that, Kendall, what you're talking about and reading quotes out of the newspaper, that's like saying let's throw all the work and all the meetings that's been done on this issue and throw all that out, and take all of our staff work that's been done on this ordinance and throw that out, and let's just do what some person writing for a newspaper, let's take and base it on their opinion and move forward. I think that's totally ridiculous. I mean, there's been a lot of work done on this. I thought we had it down to the meeting in December. There was discussion over the percentage of the fee. You know, that seemed to be